Welcome to another episode of Woman Witness Podcast, The Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Today, I have a very special guest to you, and I have a very important topic. So I want you guys to make sure that you unplug from everything except for this episode, and I want you to lean in, and I know that you'll be blessed by it. Today, I have a very special guest. I want to go ahead and introduce her, but before I do, I want to read to you a little bit about her. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is LaDonna Cannon. Hailing from Chicago's Chi-Town. Okay. LaDonna is a passionate early childhood educator with over 18 years of experience. Known for exceptional teaching skills and ability to inspire others, she is ready to answer her divine calling and share her gifts beyond the classroom. LaDonna's journey of overcoming childhood trauma has transformed her life and motivating her to demonstrate a spiritual healing from trauma. Wants you all to know that it's achievable. LaDonna's story is one of resilience, strength, showcasing the power of healing and growth. Through her own experiences, she has become a beacon of hope for many, showing that it is possible to emerge from difficult circumstances with grace and determination. Her dedication goes beyond academics, and she strives to instill confidence and love in oneself and shine light on truth. So, if you're listening, you're not alone. And I know this episode is going to bless you. So today, without further ado, I want to introduce my very special guest, LaDonna. She'll be sharing her personal journey and strategies that she used to heal and grow from childhood trauma. Welcome, LaDonna. We are so thrilled to have you today.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. When I got your message, it spoke to me. And when it came across my desk, my girls were like, Leah, you got to read this. And I took a look at it and I heard a lot of myself in your story. But I don't want to take the time because it is your time and your story. And for all who knows, I have healed from my own personal trauma. And it has been a journey. And I'm always willing and always able, if possible, to always find space for people who are willing to bring their stories of healing and restoration to the well. So without further ado, LaDonna, I want to go ahead and give you the floor. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? And how did you get to this point in life where you say, you know what? I'm ready to be a witness.
Well, I'm super strong. I found that out over these last several years. 2019, I decided to go to therapy. I was very reluctant because I kind of felt like there's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. So in my mind, I was telling myself, I'm good. I'm okay. I don't need to go. But I eventually went with a little bit of encouragement, and it happened because of a relationship I was in. But I ended up going, and it changed my entire life. And after that, I began to go deeper and deeper because I kind of felt like it wasn't enough. If they've given me all of these tools, these books to read, and we've talked about a lot of stuff, I still need to understand what's going on with me. So I just pressed forward with doing the work.
Yeah.
And it was the spiritual journey first, where I really began to become committed to God, seeking Him every day through prayer, through worship, through reading material, through His word. I really opened myself up to be committed to the whole process.
Yeah, I like that. And I do believe that that's so important. And LaDonna, I want to bring it back a little bit because you say you started with spirituality. So one, let me find out a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up. Tell us about your childhood.
So I grew up in a single parent home with just my mom and my siblings. But I was introduced to God through a ministry in the neighborhood. When I was 6 years old, I joined that ministry until I was a young adult. So I had a lot of adults from my ministry who poured into me, who talked to me, who were guidance, who were a lot of help. Because I didn't get that from home. Without that ministry, I probably would be completely lost today.
So they laid the foundation.
They did. They planted seeds. They did everything. They did some great work. But then there were, again, things that I just didn't get from home.
Yeah.
That led to the suppressed trauma that needed to be dealt with.
Okay, so I'm glad you're talking about this because, one of the things I heard somewhere, and I don't know where I heard it from. It might have been actually one of my many pastors that I listened to. His name is Robert Madu, and he was talking about different trauma, and he was talking about different types of trauma, right? And your trauma may not be trauma to me because your trauma may be, I may look at it and say, girl, bye. Like, you don't know what I've been through, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
it may be unfair of me to feel that way, but
yes.
I want to talk to you about the different trauma because different trauma affects us differently. When you were, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually abused in many different ways, that can have its own set of consequences with it. So, and it can bring on a lot of different things like, neglect and rejection and isolation, these different characters, imposter syndrome that we carry around with us in our adult lives, right? I'm a victim of it all. So I know what that's like. You talk about the different things that you walked away with your own abuse. So talk to us about some of those scars that you carried on with you and how you identified them and knew that, wait, this is a problem, and it goes deeper than what I understand.
So I didn't know anything about the mental emotional. I didn't know anything about that. I picked that up after I began to do the work. The doctor even asked me like, what did they diagnose you with? And I'm like, nobody diagnosed me with anything. Like
Right.
that's not why I'm here. And so I
Mm,
realized it was the physical abuse, and then it was emotional neglect, and I
mhm.
add on many other things because I think it's even traumatic if you grow up without a father figure. One of the things that I kept telling myself, well, if I had a healthy father figure around, I would know some of these things. Like I went through a lot, and I feel like that part was was even worse because you need someone to show you, to guide you, to love on you, and when you're missing that, you just out here. I've been through it all. I can't tell you it was mental. Oh, it was
Mm,
financial. It was spiritual because I had to unlearn some things spiritually too. I was emotionally neglected. And when
mm,
I was a child, I think I was like 3 or 4 years old, I remember asking myself, why am I here? No one
mm,
was ever talking to me. No one was ever pouring or doing too much of anything to me. So I felt alone.
mm. LaDonna, I can hear your pain and I see your tears. I definitely can empathize with you. And as a 4-year-old, that is a huge undertaking to take on, to ask like, why am I here? And one, I will, give you the credit for your young mind at the time to realize that, what, I have a bigger purpose. And I think that's huge and strong within itself. And I think most of the times the enemy goes after you at such a young age because he knows the calling on your life is so much greater. But I want to talk to you about some of those feelings of isolation because it sounds like those are some of the things that you brought into your adulthood. So talk to us about how you even identified that and knowing that, what, hold on, this is a repetitive thing that is happening.
Personally, when I grew up, you weren't validated emotionally. Like I wasn't. I didn't feel like I was cared for much. So
Yeah.
even as an adult, my emotions were always suppressed about a lot of things. Things happen, you move on from them. I didn't deal with a lot of things. I just held it in. Although I've been an early childhood teacher, I never connected that to myself, knowing
Mm,
that kids are supposed to get XYZ, and I've never had a problem doing it. And I think, well, I know for a fact that's why I've been doing this for so long because I never want a child to feel like I felt. They should never be around an adult and an adult isn't in their face, engaging with them, loving on them, holding them, hugging them, whatever the case may be. So whatever I didn't get, it was never hard for me to give it to another child. However, I had a huge problem with giving it to myself and understanding that I deserved it and that I, even how to give it to myself. So I had a lot
yeah.
of work to do.
Yeah. I want to ask you for that child in that I want to talk to the child first. For that child who may be listening, to the young adult, that teen who may be listening right now. And I'm gonna have you give two. So break down your hand. Yeah, listen, I want two questions for that young child or that teen, that preteen who is listening, who may be listening, and they're suppressing that childhood trauma and they're suppressing these feelings. What would you say to them right now as far as recognizing it?
I would say find a trusted adult. Find someone who you think you can trust and open up to,
Yeah.
so that you can get some type of guidance and some type of help and support. I believe maybe if I was able to understand some of the things that I was going through, I could ask an adult certain things, but I just had so much bottled up that I couldn't articulate those words to anybody because it was very difficult. But one of the things that helps anybody is books. So if you can get access to a library, get you some books on emotional health. Joyce Myers has a lot of books.
Yes, she
So
does.
I'm
Yes.
big on that. That was my process. So I did start reading and relating to some of the stories that I was reading, and then I had a better understanding of the mental health part too, because you
Yeah.
definitely have to go and dig deep mentally to heal what's going on emotionally in your life.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I think that's the best advice. I used to think, what advice would have liked to receive when I was that age. And when I was trying to figure out, myself and find my identity, and find my way through the trauma. I couldn't agree with you more, LaDonna, and your advice is find a trusted adult and be willing to be vulnerable and persistent. I think it's the key because sometimes even as a young child or a young adult, we don't really know how to, like you said, articulate ourselves and this, open up and maybe perhaps even going to a trusted adult saying, you know what, I may need to talk to a therapist or like a professional because I don't know how to say what's hurting me. So I love your advice. I want you to also talk to some of the adults who I can testify for my own self, being an adult, married, kids, everything, moving on, trying to just live my life as if nothing ever happened. What would you say to some of those women and men who have not even dealt with it? They're just still trying to sweep it under the rug.
I did mention earlier that I was in denial, and when I say denial, I was in deep denial. The
Yeah.
thing that helped me though was I definitely know it was God using my situation. But one of the things that I began to do is I had to focus on me. I had to focus on what I wanted, and I had to focus on how to get it.
Yeah.
And the help came from God, but I did put myself in a place where, and I told people around me like, hey, I'm about to take some time for myself. And I did a self discovery journey. I started focusing
Mm.
on, hey, what is it that I would like to get from life, or what is it I would like to give. And then I started focusing on hobbies. I started focusing on my fears, because all of that stuff needs to be released. It's impossible to let anything in. So I always do it like this, or on his
Yeah.
closed and a hand open. You have
Yeah.
to be able to have them open so you can do both. So you can receive and you can give.
Mm.
And I couldn't do anything with my heart like this. So I literally took time to discover me. It was the best thing in the world. And I also decided not to date because I didn't want to harm anybody, and I didn't want anybody to be able to harm me anymore. So I set up boundaries. I knew what that looked like. I did the work. It was a lot,
Mm.
tremendous work, but I did it.
That is so good. Setting up boundaries, being able to receive and give. I heard you say, and learning to love you and focus on what is important to you. I
Hmm.
I love all of those, and you said more, but those are the ones that really are highlighting to me because it is important. It is so important to set up those boundaries. And like you said, not allowing anyone in your space, not for any reason other than the fact that you're not ready. And that's okay. That is okay. Sometimes being alone and being in solitude is the best time to heal
Yes.
within. And okay, I like it. Thank you so much thanks for sharing that. Now I want to go and talk about your overall spiritual growth. Now I heard you say that the women in the church or in your community helped lay the foundation for your spiritual well-being. How did you know to pull on that in this time of healing? Where did you go to? How deep did you go? And did you just cry out? What was that breaking moment that helped you say, you know what, I gotta go deeper?
I am going to truly open up and talk about something that I rarely hear. I've read about it in one of famous pastor in one of her books. She talked about it about her with her son, and there was a demonic spirit. So
Mm-hmm.
I was inconsistent with my relationship with God, like most people are, and
Yeah.
I believe it came from a place of hurt. So I really didn't trust God, the
Mm-hmm.
way I should have. I wasn't consistent with him. I wasn't talking to him every day. But what happened was I remember being paralyzed in my sleep a couple of times. I wasn't afraid, but I just was like, what is going on? What is happening? Because I'm not that terrible of a person like there's a demon trying to attack me. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
going through that, and that's that foundation of just remembering like how I grew up thinking about church and the ministry, but really getting serious with God, because that's when I realized it was a spiritual battle
Yeah.
and I would need God to help me through it. And that's when I began to talk to God in a totally different way. I started telling him I wanted to be better in every area of my life as a Christian, as a woman, as a mother. I told him that, so my conversations were even different with him. But
Yeah.
I was willing to say I completely laid down my life, as I should have been doing years ago, but I
Yeah.
completely laid down my life, and you can take over.
Yeah. Okay, LaDonna, you have to go back because I want to really make this clear because we have a wide range of audience who are listening, so people may not fully understand. Some people are just now finding out what faith is, what it looks like, and really trying to uncover it. So I'm gonna ask you to go a little bit deeper. When you say that you found yourself at night laying there paralyzed, when you say paralyzed, you mean paralyzed in your broken in your spirit? Talk to me about that a little bit more.
So no, I would be asleep.
Mm-hmm.
I would be dreaming. I would be in sleep in bed. It would
Mm-hmm.
be the middle of the night. There would be a a dark entity like a grand reaper at the foot of my bed, and
Okay,
I wouldn't be able to move. I would be asleep.
got it. So you actually felt that.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And at that moment you knew I gotta pray. I gotta move this.
At first I was again, I wasn't afraid in the dream, but when I woke up and I had never experienced that before, that's when I knew something else had to be done. I had to move different. I had to do something different. And of course the praying helped, because I'm like, well, what do I need to do? But I was alone in trying to figure this stuff out, because
Mhm.
I knew everyone wouldn't understand it. Plus I was still to
Mm.
myself. I couldn't be open with
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And hold on. I just want to say this, LaDonna. I appreciate you talking about it and sharing it because number one, a lot of people may go through these things in silence, and a lot of people may not know, how to push past it. It's one thing to dream, and it's another thing to be in between the realms where you begin to see things even on a different level, and it is real. And I believe you. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. And I do also want to say that a lot of, like I said, sharing your story lets other people know that one, they're not alone. Two, that there is a way out and there is a way to put up those barriers in the spirit deeper by through prayer, through petition, through by surrounding yourself with people that will cover you even in your spiritual realm and also in reality. So I want to appreciate you for sharing that, because everyone has to find their way out, but they have to find out where they are first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is important. So yes, thank you for sharing. And I love what you say, the fact that you said you knew at that point you had to lay it all down at the altar. You didn't say that, but that's what I've heard you say. You said I had to go and I say, Lord, make me a better mom, make me a better person, make me a better woman. And I think that's where it all begins, is when you throw your hands up and say, Lord, take it all.
Mm-hmm.
I clearly don't know how to fix this. I
Mhm.
need you to, I surrender. My mom used to sing that song, I surrender all. If I could sing, girl, I will blow it right now. Um, and it takes a lot to get to that point, LaDonna, because we are, I talked about this in another episode. We're women, and I don't know if it's a woman thing, but we want to fix everything. We want to do everything ourselves. And it's a lot to just say, take Jesus, take the wheel.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so thank you for telling that. Now I want you to talk to us. We have already talked about healing childhood trauma and spiritual growth. Tell me, what was that defining moment where you said, okay, I believe I'm being called outside of the classroom to go out and preach to and teach. I ain't gonna say preach. I get scared with the P word, but teach to the nation and teach to the people who need to hear my voice the most. What was that defining moment for you?
So God told me maybe about 8 or 9 years ago to start a women's group. And I told God no. I
Mm.
told him no because I didn't like women. And why would you be telling me to do something where you clearly see that I don't get along with them? And so maybe, it was 2017, I finally said, okay, let me do a women's night
Yeah.
where I invited, and it is so funny. I had like a maybe like 12 women show up at my house where we actually sat and we talked about things. One woman in particular showed up, talked about a book that she had wrote, and she
Wow.
broke down like I was like, oh, okay. But
Whoa.
my conversation piece is what actually made me realize that there was a whole lot more to uncover to help other women. And I really didn't get down to the meat of anything. I just started with that. I finally went ahead and did what God was telling me to do. And
Yeah.
then maybe more recently, about a year and a half ago, I started doing like a small Zoom meeting for women. Maybe like 3 or 4 of us would gather
Wow.
to do that, because no one was reading their Bible. I didn't have a group of strong spiritual women around me. So God was actually asking me to create that.
To
And
create.
when that didn't go well, I said, well, there has to be a way for me to start teaching, because when you're growing spiritually, you have no other choice but to pour into somebody else, because those seeds are always coming.
Yeah.
And I started with the TikTok videos, because I was like, somebody out here needs to know that we're supposed to be growing in the word, mentally, in every area of our life. We're supposed to be growing. So God was actually asking me to share that. And it
Yeah.
wasn't anything huge. It was like small pieces, but in a way that people can understand what it is I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And number one, I was talking to another girl about this, and we were talking about obedience. And when you said no, and I ain't judging you because I did the same thing. All right, because God will
Mm-hmm.
take the things that are most foreign to you and be like, go do that. You're like, wait a minute, Lord, you already know my
Right.
shortcomings. um well, okay, can I ask you, and it's not about me, but can I ask you, like, what was your reservation with women? Like, what was your reservation with women?
So I was just explaining to someone yesterday that I actually was bringing in the old baggage from even childhood, from how I was treated, how women act towards me, and how people just didn't know how to be a friend. And
Yeah.
so that literally changed there was something God had me to do with another person. And from that day forward, I began to be open to other women and just more observant of them. Not
Yeah.
judgmental, but like, okay, she probably wouldn't be a person that I hung around for a long time, but I made sure that I could be friends with everybody. Every woman that I came across. That literally is what happened.
Yes. I love it so, so, so much. I hear myself in you so much. And it's not because I think for me, I never had a per se an issue, but at the same time, uh, I became at some point or another, I don't know when it happened, but I was kind of like a lazy friend. You know, if you asked me to do anything, I was busy. I'll try to avoid everybody at all costs. I'll pick up a phone and be like, "Hello, oh, hey girl," one of those. You know, just a lazy friend. And I hear you loud and clear because I believe that God told he got a hold of me too and was like, nah, we ain't doing that no more. You can't be a lazy friend. You have to be available. You have to open your mouth. You have to listen. You have to listen was my biggest thing because I like to talk. So I had to learn, I had to learn to listen and be a friend in order to, you know, I was listening to you. You live in the amazing city of Chicago. When I come back, I have family in Chicago area, and you heard of Pastor Hannah?
Of course.
Oh my God, I am going straight to that church when I get back home, or where my grandparents and my mom live. They all live over there. So when I go there, I'm going straight to that church. And he was talking about in his past, and not this past week, but the week before that, he was talking about show yourself friendly. And I was like, that's for me. You have to show yourself friendly.
Absolutely.
You have to show yourself friendly. You got to be a friend to help others. And I know that's helping you in your ministry. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, you're absolutely fine, because that's funny. Pastor Hannah, I grew up under him too. He had so many amazing programs back 20 some years ago for us. He poured into me. So absolutely, it's a reason why he brought his name up. It's just confirmation.
Oh, wow. What a small world. Okay, so when I come there, I'll be there in May. I'm gonna hit you up. And,
okay.
You can come over there, girl. I can't wait to meet Pastor Hannah. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about we talked about advice and, you know, working, starting your ministry and doing all that, and it's scary to start our ministry, right? Talk to me about your podcast.
That was when I started in the beginning, but one of the things that I love is that I have expanded to really understand where I want to go. And so I'll probably be changing that for Creative for More.
Don't change it. Why would you change it?
Well, because I'm not sure. I want everything to be. I kind of want to merge everything together. The brand that I'm using right now is called Creative for More, and I want people to know that that's the same thing for them.
Okay.
So I think that's why I might change it. But I love Let's Chat or Chat It Up, because there's so much stuff that we need to start talking about to get to get it out there, to understand more about healing and more about what's important.
Okay, so I want to talk about words of wisdom is one of the things you got. And this is why I don't want you, even if you reconstruct it, and I had to work on this even within myself, because I've came a long way. And I do have some stuff on there that I'm not taking off, because I think it's important that people see your growth, because sometimes people see where you are. Excuse me, I got excited. Sometimes people see where you are, but they don't understand where you started. And I believe in growth. And I watched some of when I found Pastor Hannah, I went and watched all his old stuff. I watched all Bishop TDJ's old stuff. I watch your old stuff because I like to see where you started to where you're at, because sometimes people don't see your growth. But I want to talk to you about, and this is where it's coming from. You talked about words. You have this devotion of words of wisdom. And I want to talk to you about your one you put, I remember when. And yeah, sorry, I go digging. Okay, I told you. Don't listen. And this is where we talk about where we started to where we are at. And I felt like that I remember when spoke to me. So what made you just start writing that? Because you had to sit down and write this. Unless you just came up with this off the top of your head. What made you take that?
So that came from Ida B. I think her name is Ida B. Well, or Ida B. Bell. I think it's actually a book. She wrote a book. Yes. And I read that. And what I did was I actually talked about then and now. You know, how when we were growing up, there were so many other people helping us, but there was also a lot of structure in the home. We didn't have options of, not going to church, but that wasn't my story. I wasn't made to go to church I went a couple of times sporadically with a few family members, but that decision was made by me when I was 6 years old, and the ministry was literally like 500 feet away from my house, and I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, at a certain age, you don't always go because it's not always interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
I understood that hey, this is the place I would rather be.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
about
I
meeting.
always go back to remembering who planted seeds in me, what was happening back then, and then starting to reinforce that stuff, because that's important. We're missing that in these communities, and that's another thing that I've been trying to figure out. Okay, how can I come back and give to my community in a very impactful way? So I'm always working on something, but that's where that came from. That was inspiration for me.
Well, that was good. So wait, so you're saying even when you were talking about I remember when, this was already pre-written? You didn't write that?
No, no, that
Oh,
was
you were
something
just
else.
reading it. Oh, well.
It should her book should have popped up.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't see that. But well, here's the deal. Here's the reality of it. I do remember when. And I do remember when, coming home, you got to be home. The street light told you when you have to be home.
Mm-hmm.
And other people, and with you even being an educator, you're working with children. And I'm with children all day. I have 5 kids myself. I have my older boys that are grown. They don't need me anymore. Then I got my 3 little ones. So I know what it's like to say, if you see somebody's kid acting up, it's okay to say, hey, what you doing? Your mama ain't gonna want you doing that, right? I'm gonna tell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. Now I think nowadays we're too sensitive, or maybe we've been hurt in our past trauma that
Mm-hmm.
we get mad if somebody say something to our kid or look at our kid wrong, but I do believe that it takes a community to heal, to grow. It takes an environment of good people, good women, good, men to heal and to grow from. So I do remember when you could actually go and lay yourself off in the altar and pour out and not worry about nobody talking about you.
Absolutely.
Worrying about what you got on, and you not feeling
Yeah.
put together enough to go to church and this and that, because I didn't grow up in church. I started off and then the world ended as I knew it, and I didn't grow up in church, and it took me a long time to even go back, and I'm barely back, but I watch a lot online, and I read the Bible a lot, and I'm still trying to show myself approved. But what I'm saying is it took me a while to be able to say, you know what, look, I'm coming to this house for God, and whatever he has for me will I'll meet it. I'll run into community. I'll run into the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when. So I love that, and I love the fact that you highlighted that. So I want to talk to you about deeper conversations. I thought your deeper conversations that you had, I want to talk to you about that. And I think it's important. I think conversation is important. And you went and you talked about your deeper conversation that you had with your daughter. And are you okay to talk about that?
I am.
Okay. Okay, what was your reluctancy on that?
I don't have any. One of the things that I
Uh-huh.
have learned from healing is that you have to be open. You have to be. God told me, and He made sure I did not go to sleep that night without knowing that I needed to open up and be super honest. And I don't
Mhm.
have a problem with that.
Okay. Okay. I believe deeper conversations are important, and I believe validating children are important, and relearning some of the things that how we were brought up is extremely important. You started off by saying how you felt, that, hey, I'm here, people, y'all are not even acknowledging me, and you didn't know that I had this on my list of questions
No,
today.
I.
And because I think it's important, and I think it's a conversation that we need to have in our community about talking to our children.
Mhm.
And we need to talk to our children. We need to have these deeper conversations with our children. So at what point did you begin having these deeper conversations with your children, and how has that shaped y'all's relationship and their lives?
So I started when she was very young. Every day when she come home and she get in the car, she would tell me about her day, but then she started opening up about so many other things. I didn't expect it, but that's what
Mm.
she did. Our conversations got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper to where she was telling me how she was feeling about pretty much everything. And
Mm.
so I knew that I didn't have that. I
Yeah.
didn't have that growing up. So having that outlet, having that someone care for you emotionally, being emotionally available, also opening up the doors to say, "Hey, it's okay." It wasn't easy at first because some certain conversations I was pretty afraid to have because I felt like if I start talking about this, what if she starts going out and doing some of these things? And that's where the fear came from. But I understand now that fear
Mm.
is anything that you don't have any knowledge about. And so
Mm.
that's where the curiosity comes in too. So I started saying, well, I don't have to be afraid of her going to do it. I still need to talk about it because I would prefer to talk to her about it than for her to hear about it from someone else who doesn't have accurate knowledge.
Yes, yes. At what age or what stage in this process did you feel that the conversations were getting deeper, heavier? And what did you do to better equip yourself for them?
So one of the biggest issues that I've been seeing with young girls is girls liking girls.
Mhm.
And so when my daughter came to me and she was very young, she was like 7 or 8, and she was talking about her siblings and how they liked other girls and her reaction to it, I
Mhm.
was I was very shocked, and
Mhm.
again, kind of afraid to touch on that because then I was like, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
Of course,
Mhm.
I didn't overreact because I wanted her to still be able to come to me and be open about whatever was going on with her or how she felt about situations.
Mhm.
So it did start from there where she
Mhm.
mentioned, what was going on. I loved it, absolutely, because
Yeah.
I
Yes.
felt like, again, you want to be that person that gives them information
Right.
first.
Right. Yes. Yes. And you want to be that person that they can come to. And you know what, LaDonna, I want to tell you, I just feel this so strongly. Sometimes what the enemy meant for harm, God will turn into good. So what
Absolutely.
you went through as a child, now you're wired as an adult saying, I'm going to be there for my child. It doesn't matter what you're going through, what was happening, what growth you're going through or experiencing. I'm gonna be there for you. I'm gonna be your voice. I'm gonna be your sound box. I'm gonna be your pillow. I'm gonna be your tissue. Whatever it is that you need, I'm going to always be there. And I think so. I'm sorry. Now I'm getting emotional because I want you. Okay, I want to tell you that thank you for sharing and thank you for even bringing this conversation to the well because it's important. And I think that if anybody took anything from this conversation, one, yes, we need to have deeper conversations. Yes, we have to face our own childhood trauma and heal from it. And yes, we have to be there for our children in the way that we didn't have when we were children. I find myself doing that as well, making sure that I'm there to hold and guide my kids through some of the times and tough times that I didn't have. So I want to say you're doing good. Keep doing good. Keep talking about it. Keep being there for your daughter because she needs you.
Mhm.
It's only at the times where we feel that we can direct and turn and shape their lives that we lose them. And then all them years of building that trust through those deep conversations, now she no longer has her mom, and that's not what she needs right now.
Right, right, yeah.
You needed to talk about that. Thank you. I get passionate about stuff like that. So thank you. Okay, LaDonna, sorry. Let me bring myself back on.
It's okay.
Let me bring myself back on. And I think I really, I want to tell you, I love your deeper conversations. I think that I would love to have you even back further to carry on with that because I don't know if that is your ministry and that's where you're going as far as what you want to get back out there and teach into the community and teach with our young people, but talking and being there for them is what they need more so than they need somebody preaching at them and throwing them away and pushing them and giving them to the streets. They need us to hold on tight to them. So that's not where I was going with it, but let's put that on the side burner. I would love to come back and visit that with you.
Okay.
That's one of my biggest passions. Okay, so as we wrap up, LaDonna, we talked about a lot. We covered a lot. I feel that anybody who has been listening to this, if you have dealt with your own trauma, if you are trying to hide it and sweep it under the rug, if you heard anything in this message today, I encourage you to pick up the phone. I know we can leave some, LaDonna. I don't know if you have some websites that they can go to. Perhaps you can send them to me. I'll put them in the description that they can go to maybe, start seeking help, get some of these books by Joyce Myers that you were talking about, some of these different healing methods, so they can start uncovering some of that trauma themselves. Because we would not, as LaDonna talked about today, would not want you to carry this through life. It's only hindering you from living in your fullest potential and your divine purpose. So, LaDonna, leave us and our listeners with something that they can carry with them throughout the week. What would you say to them?
One of the most important things that I have learned to love is creating a morning routine. And it has set me up for the greatest days, the greatest days. When you are feeding yourself, because Oprah Winfrey always talks about filling your cup. And what that means is that you're giving yourself everything that you need. And I believe that's done at the beginning of the day, where you take time and you do things that you love, where you take time and you figure out what you need and what you love, so then you can pour it out. And
Yeah.
so I have been super, super emotionally healthy to the point where I have a lot of self control, because I know that's one of the issues that we face too. But giving yourself everything so that you can then give to others, because that's how it works. We give to ourselves and then we go out and we serve.
Come on, that is so good. And you said the biggest thing that I think that will help us all is filling ourselves up so we're not pouring from an empty cup,
Mm-hmm.
and then going out to serve. Sometimes we stay in and we feel like everybody should just come to us, find us, find us. We have so much to serve you with. But it's important that you take that time to go out. Take that time to start that TikTok. Take that time to start that YouTube. Take that time to start those write that book. Y'all know I write books now. I wrote 16 books. And at times when I thought nobody was listening and even reading and watching my books, I just felt like I was writing in vain. But God said, go out and serve. You got to be a server. And when you start serving, God's going to fill you up with more. Oh, LaDonna, thank you so much for bringing your story to the well and talking to us. And I'm so glad that God is calling you higher and calling you into different places. I pray that God enlarges your territory and that more people will hear themselves, see themselves in you and through you, and they will come and camp around you and empower you to really get started on this ministry that I know that you're going to do some really good things with. And I wish you nothing but the best luck. And I thank you, my sister, for joining me here at the well. And I want to thank all my listeners for tuning in to another episode of Woman Witness Podcast, The Stories at the Well. If you were blessed by something you heard today, I ask that you share this with a friend. Share this with a family member. Share this with someone who needs to be encouraged and needs to know that they are not held to their past trauma, that they can go and live a life and live it abundantly and walk in their full divine purpose. I want to thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Woman Witness Podcast, The Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Thank you, LaDonna Cannon, for joining me. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Until next time, perhaps you are chosen for such a time as this to write and to tell your story, your truth. Until next time, bye.